Hello and welcome to the Franchise Territory Mapping Summit. My name is Lawrence. I'm the head of marketing here at MangoMap, and we are the leading franchise sales and territory mapping platform, helping brands all across the globe create, manage, and sell more franchise territories, normally within 90 days. Throughout the course of today's summit, we will be taking you through how you can adopt a territory-driven strategy in your franchise, how you can create a data-driven approach to creating territories, and then ultimately present territories to franchise prospects in order to convince them of the business opportunity and ultimately get them to buy in. I'm joined again by Paul Gager here today, the resident mapping expert at Mango. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm well, thanks, Lawrence.
Awesome. So today we are talking about points of interest. So this is the next step. We've already gone through demographic data. We went through in the last talk. We went through boundary data in terms of the shape of the territory. And today is about points of interest. So this is an extra layer of data, if you will, that you can actually add into the demographics in order to really bring a territory to life and create also add to the boundary as well. So I think let's start off by just explaining what we mean by points of interest. And then maybe we'll go through some of the benefits.
Yeah, sure. So really, a point of interest is any business or attraction where people may be going to either buy something or use a particular service. And it covers a whole broad range of points. So it could be, a large train station. It could be, a juice bar. It could be a shopping center. So it's really just another layer of information that we can bring into the territory mapping environment to help us understand what's going on at the local level.
In a way, it helps you assess. It's an additional layer to help you assess, say, the market potential of an area or a territory, and then also, I imagine, potential sites as well in order to open.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a couple of ways that we can use points of interest. One might be to identify territories where the demand or just the general level of activity might just be too low to support a business there. And then the second thing is really a bit of a value add for your franchisees. And particularly when selling and presenting to them, you can say this is a great opportunity because, there's these similar businesses in the area that are going to draw people to the area. It's lowish competition. Obviously, no area is totally free of competition, but it allows you to describe the area in more ways than just a demographic profile and that territory boundary.
When we do discuss this with clients, I think one of the most important is competitor locations. This is something that comes up in almost every conversation that we have. So maybe if we could just go through competitor locations first. Why is it useful to know that? Can it help in territory sizing, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. So competitor locations can inform you, particularly in situations where that competitor might be sort of fully built or have opened a lot of sites already. It can help you to understand the dynamics of their business and perhaps which areas might be working well for them. Also to think about sizing and spacing of your territory. So it can inform that territory creation process and just to help you crystallize your ideas about what your own territories will look like.
Yeah.
And then the second aspect is really for the franchisee or the business who's going to operate in that area so they can understand, if I open in this particular site, how far away am I from a competitor location? So those are really the two main benefits of mapping competitor locations.
Does that help in, say, when you're presenting to a potential franchisee? Is this something that is important for that process and when you get through to the ultimate sales presentation?
Yeah, and I guess you have to be a little bit careful about how you use it. I mean, for example, if you look at how many gyms there are in a city, there are just hundreds and thousands. And so you don't want to tell somebody that, oh, no, this isn't going to work. So it could be just used internally to inform you about territory sizing. You may or may not present that information to the candidate at that stage. You may present it to them at the sales stage or later on to help them with, thinking about development. But certainly if it's an area that has relatively low competition or you think there's an opportunity there, maybe the market's underserved and that's been highlighted because there's a lack of competitors, then that's definitely something you want to bring to those conversations.
The next aspect of this is anchor tenants or draw tenants. This is another important point of interest that we work with a lot. I think that's quite a technical term, so maybe you could explain what it is and then go through, why that is included in the mix of data that we use.
Sure. So an anchor tenant or a draw tenant is really in the context of a larger shopping center or a mall. So these might be big department stores or large branded locations, like a Walmart, a Whole Foods, sort of these big brands that are going to draw people to shop in that area, and they'll indicate that a large number of people are in that vicinity because of the draw tenants that are there. It might be more than one draw tenant. So they're a good indicator of where things are happening, basically.
I imagine as well, if that has been in place for a long time, then that area is going to have a certain history of that. So it's going to be a gathering place that people know about, I imagine. So it's places to eat. There's an area of shops for specific groceries or something, or there's a specific area for fitness. So that reputation has already been built. So I imagine if it's already a gathering place, then it's something that you really need to consider when you are creating territories or thinking about locating a new outlet or restaurant or whatever it will be.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, around these larger draw tenants, there's normally a range of other outlets and services that are in that vicinity. So there's more to it than that. It's not just that single site. It's all of the things and all of the businesses and services in that area that we're really looking at.
Moving on from businesses, there's also, because you can track, say, competitor locations and get somewhat myopic on that. But but you can also look at, say, in a B2B context, like customer locations as well.
Yeah, that's right. So, various B2B offerings. So, for example, if you're doing commercial cleaning, you want to know where the office buildings are, or if you're doing a retail cleaning, restaurant cleanings, a specialization. So really to get those locations on the map, they can also be, prospects for the operator of that business, that franchisee. So yeah, it's really useful to bring that in, and to really help that franchisee get up and go and launch that business.
When it comes to customer locations, a really useful additional layer of data that you can add to that is, say, contact details. So you can actually offer that in terms of lead generation to your franchisees. You can be like, well, here are the certain potential customer locations, especially if it's in a B2B context.
Yeah.
And then if you already have a pre-populated list of, say, contact details, phone numbers, people that they can call, then it adds an additional layer of value.
Yeah, that's right. So you can certainly provide them with accounts. So, for example, there are 25 restaurants in this area that might require commercial cleaning done, and that's just a good indicator of the opportunity in the area. But then, being map based and everything address based to generate that list of leads or prospects that that franchisee can take and use to market to, basically.
Where does things like public transport come into this? A tube stop or a
Sure.
metro stop, depending on where you are.
Yeah, so in a lot of major cities, the public transport is the main way to get around, depending on where you are. Places like New York, Tokyo, London, Sydney, and so forth. And those are really where there's a lot of foot traffic. Often, the stations will be regularly spaced, and businesses will be clustered around those stations. Maybe within a certain walking distance. People are moving from home to work and to various other reasons. And so to be located fairly close to one of those can be definitely beneficial in those contexts. So to bring in a layer of public transport stops, especially things like train routes or underground routes, and those associated stops, is crucial in those sort of environments.
One question that occurs to me there is that, have you seen any effects from, say, because over the past few years, a lot more people have been working remotely. Has that presented any challenges in terms of, okay, well, we know that the daytime population is X because of this certain number of businesses. So are there any ways that any challenges that you've come upon when that's, in terms of when people have been remote working?
Yeah, sure. So that was quite a unique situation, and businesses that relied on the daytime working population in a CBD or a downtown, for example, would have been massively impacted, especially where that good or that service was delivered in person. A lot of businesses switch to an online model or a mixed model where you could click and collect, for example, to avoid contact. Um, I think some of those impacts were unavoidable, but businesses that were able to adapt quickly and still offer that service and switch to some kind of online delivery still did pretty well, and especially those that were placed within a sort of a mixed environment or in a completely residential environment. That people are still allowed to
Yeah.
move or were allowed to move around in the local area. But anyway, some lessons learned then. Hopefully, we don't get back to that extreme situation, but certainly the dynamics of work have changed a little bit. I guess residential areas would have typically emptied out more than they are these days. So that working daytime working population is probably something that's giving businesses in those areas a bit of a boost, and the ones in the CBD are probably facing some challenges there still.
I imagine because it's not as extreme as it was before, there are some areas that are turning back to normal, some areas that maybe not. So I imagine this is the case. The really important thing here is that you must be using the latest data that you can, because things change, and then you have to be updating constantly. So this is something that we work with a lot of our clients. We're doing constant data updates.
Yeah.
Maybe you need a slight shift in strategy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, of course, to have up-to-date demographic data is really important. It's not always possible to get it for the current year, but as close to as possible. But certainly, when we work with people who to get going or who need a refresh, to get current points of interest is really important, and we're able to do that. And we've seen, for example, although let's take gyms for example. Sometimes the headlines are a lot of gyms are closing, but we've also seen that a lot of new gyms are opening or they come under new ownership. So it's quite a dynamic environment. Some of those gyms
Yeah.
may have moved nearby or to a completely newer site or reopened in the same site. But certainly, we're able to keep up with that sort of fast-changing environment and make sure that people have current, up-to-date information to work with.
It's something that we've seen as a trend, and a lot of new concepts have been continued to be launched over the past few years, and that really does continue to this day. So, taking it back to points of interest, how do we gather point of interest data so that we're able to constantly update and keep people with the latest information that is available?
Yeah, so there's a couple of main sources that we look at. So if there are particular brands that somebody's interested in mapping, either as an anchor tenant or as a competitor, we would normally go through a scraping exercise or to get the most current data for that particular brand. Their websites have their locations listed. That's always the best source of information. For broader categories or listings that are not branded, so let's say hair salons, a lot of them are independent, and various other types of services. We have some automated scraping tools to scrape them from various websites, and they produce very good results in terms of completeness and currency, which are the two main metrics that we look at. So it's often a mix of targeted brands plus some general categories of points of interest that will bring to that information layer.
So, in summary, almost the same as when we were talking about demographic data. Anything with an address and a location can ultimately be mapped, and it can be mapped as a point of interest.
Right.
So the sheer scope and volume of data that you can do now. We've gone through shopping areas, we've gone through public transportation, competitors, customers in the B2B context. So there are so many different points of interest that you can map. Again, it really does boil down to the strategy that you're deploying, the type of business that you are. But the ultimate message here is that if there is anything with an address, it can be mapped and it can be added to a territory.
Yeah, that's right. And just to highlight the fact that some of the information and the points of interest information is really used internally. So just to plan and prepare territories. And then some of it might be shared externally, so with prospects. So it's really up to you to figure out how to incorporate that into your processes. But this at various stages and at various decision points, that is definitely useful to have.
So, in conclusion, I would say that in terms of benefits, I mean, points of interest, I mean, they're very important to understand, say, the dynamics of a territory. They add a lot of additional value into the demographic data and really bring a territory to life. We can touch upon the competitive landscape. We can look at the opportunities in the local area.
Yeah.
And they're also really useful for franchisees to select a great site,
Right.
or for you as a franchise to offer franchisees a great site as well.
Yeah.
So, is there anything I've missed in that conclusion?
No, I think you've captured it well there. I mean, without them, a map can look a bit bland. It's just a shape with some information attached to it. But there's always so much more going on in an area, and that makes it a compelling story to tell in terms of getting interest in the area, and then also the way that you think about developing and building up a business in that area. So it really is crucial, and without it, I think the maps would be the poorer for it.
Thanks for all of the information today, Paul. In the next talk, we're going to be touching upon putting it together. So we've gone through territories, in terms of a strategy. We've gone through actually the specific types of data that you'll need. It's demographic, there's boundary data, which is the geographic shape, and then points of interest, which add that final layer of information in order to really bring it to life. So next, we're going to be talking about how you can actually stitch all that together and then actually take it to market and actually begin presenting to franchisees. This use case has been used by hundreds of other franchises over the past couple of years, and we've really watched it develop. So it's going to be a really interesting talk. So we've gone through all the information. In the next talk, we're actually going to be showing you how this works when a map is done and when it is presented to a franchisee. So I'll see you in the next one, Paul. And for everyone watching, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.